West Denver. Sleep deprived and heavily caffeinated.
All right, let's do this then.
This is the Jeff and Bill Show.
I don't agree with that.
They don't always agree, but hey, at least they have coffee.
Coffee.
And each other.
Love you, man.
God help us.
I want to bless him. We need all the help we can get.
Now here's Jeff Hunt and Bill Thorpe. The Jeff and Bill Show on News Talk 710
9 a.m. in the Mile High
KNUS.
City on this Monday, July 28th, 2025. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned in to the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. Phone lines are hot. Let's go back to them. Rafael, Aurora, good morning. You're on with Jeff and Bill.
Morning.
Good morning, Bill. Good morning, Jeff. I just want to make a comment on the income credit that the previous caller mentioned.
Yeah.
In order to qualify for the earned income credit, everybody on the 1040 has to have a valid Social Security number. If I'm married and I have a valid Social Security number and my spouse has an ITIN number, and my 3 children have valid Social Security numbers, they deny the earned income credit. Everybody has to have a valid Social Security number. Now, for the children that has an ITIN number, they do not qualify for the $2,000 child tax credit. They only qualify for $500. Before 2018, they did qualify for the full child tax credit. Now things changed. They only qualify for $500.
Oh, thank you.
So if you have an ITIN number, you do not qualify for earned income credit, period. And that's always been like that. Everybody has to have a valid Social Security number.
Thank you, Rafael.
That's my comment.
Thank you.
Rafael, that's great.
Appreciate that.
Appreciate the
Thank you.
details on that.
Thanks.
Thank
Have a
you
good
for
day, my
calling.
friend.
We always have great callers.
Yeah, Rafael's a lot of fun. And we got one more.
Whenever we talk about a particular issue,
Yeah.
the experts call in.
Yeah, they do.
And inform us.
Because I have
which
no
is
idea
great.
what I'm saying. Yeah, half the time. So Jeff agrees.
Thank you,
Yes.
Rafael.
Thank
We
you, Rafael.
appreciate
We
it.
got another phone
All
call.
right, we got
from a guy
Yep,
from
go
Kansas
ahead,
City. Jeff from Kansas City. He's calling us. Now he's visiting. He's not calling all the way from Kansas City. He's visiting. But good morning, Jeff. How are you?
Yeah, good morning. Thank you. Yeah, I just tuned into the show this morning and like to weigh in on the immigration and some of the things that my view. What about AI and the impact that AI is going to have? You know, when you listen to these talking heads, they tell us how it's going to create jobs. Who believes that? I think initially, perhaps, but the whole idea of AI, it's going to eliminate a lot of jobs. So, I mean, how's that going to affect the amount of people that we're actually going to need and what have you? You know, they also talk about how the immigrants have these jobs that, nobody else wants these jobs. These are all jobs that nobody else wants. I don't believe that either. I think there's some really good paying jobs out there that have not been available. If you look at the meat packing plants, those are very good, well-paying jobs, and a lot of those jobs have been taken. Second of all, I'd like to say, I don't think we need immigrants coming in to clean my home. Clean your own home. Mow your own lawn. Are you kidding me? Mow your own lawn, clean your own home, and don't tell me we got to have people come into the country because we can't get up off the couch and take care of our home, our own home.
Jeff, you understand that there are a whole bunch of rich people all across the country. They're getting so mad at you because you want them to cut their own grass. And oh my God, you mean raise their own kids? They shouldn't have a nanny. You want these rich people to raise their own kids? Jeff, what do you have in mind here? This is crazy talk. This is crazy talk.
I do find it ironic that we were told to embrace coding by all the people, and if there's one thing AI is going to do, it's going to eliminate those jobs. But if you're a plumber, if you actually learn to work with your hands, AI maybe not so much. Jeff, sure appreciate the call.
Yeah, appreciate
Thanks so
that, Jeff.
much.
Thanks, and hope you enjoyed town while you're visiting.
Yeah, welcome.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Listen to us on 710K.
Also hoping you're not a Chiefs fan.
.com.
Don't not Chiefs fan. I'm just saying because we're Broncos fans. We love you, Jeff. It's okay.
We've got Aaron Lee coming up here in just a second. Executive Director of Protect Kids Colorado. If you remember her story, it was captured in a film called Art Club. If you go to artclubfilm.com, I think is the movie, or Art Club movie, but I think it's artclubfilm.com. You can see it. She allowed her daughter to go to an art club. Right? Seems rather innocuous. And what happens is they kind of unleash gender ideology upon her daughter. She then starts to think that she's transgender. And Aaron, who wasn't politically active, goes through this whole thing. Well, this lawsuit is about this case, and we're going to get the latest as they have appealed all the way now to the U.S. Supreme Court. And what could this mean for parents across the country? Friend of the program, Aaron Lee, is going to join us. Now is time for News and Comment with Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, News and Comment.
Hey, good morning. Monday, 80 and a little bit overcast. Beautiful up and down the Front Range once again. Expecting a high of 98 today. This portion of the news sponsored by Pastor Camp Heating and Air Conditioning at 303-777-1234 to learn more about special opportunities on Lennox equipment. Our top story, DJT says food centers will be set up by the U.S. in the Gaza Strip. He met with the UK Prime Minister Starmer in Scotland today to discuss the humanitarian crisis. Russia will have less time to reach a peace deal with Ukraine. 47 this morning.
So we'll see what happens with that. I'm very disappointed. I'm disappointed in President Putin. Very disappointed in him. So we're going to have to look, and I'm going to reduce that 50 days that I gave him to a lesser number because I think I already know the answer what's going to happen. I would have said
the heat is being turned up on commies Brennan, Clapper, Comey, and Clinton, just to name a few. They created a lie and the fraud about Russia with Barry, who's protected more than likely. And all of them should be in jail. Maybe one or two will get the cuffs. We'll see. Trump's impeachment attorney, David Schoen.
Let's put President Obama to the side just for a second. As for the others, I mean, if the evidence really shows what is being talked about now, and it can be proven, then certainly those others could be charged with seditious conspiracy under 18 U.S.C. 2384, undermining our government, undermining the will of the voters, certainly obstruction of justice, certainly perjury. They would all be entitled to the presumption of innocence, but those are the kinds of charges that can be brought.
What kind of
Bill Maher put down his bong for a second to compliment 47 on tariffs over the weekend. Let me get that thing right here. Oh, get it. There we go.
Because the truth is, I don't know what his strategy is. But look, the stock market is at record highs. I know not everybody lives by the stock market, but I also drive around. I don't see a country in a depression at all. I see people out there just living their lives. And I would have thought, and I got to own it, that these tariffs were going to fucking sink the...
Whoa. Did you get that, Billy? Billy?
Yes, I did.
Thank you, sir. First time in a year and a half. Sorry about that. Thank you. I'll never use him again. Lawmakers continue to call for transparency regarding the Epstein files. Democrat Ro Khanna, all of a sudden interested, said it's time for all the facts to come into the light. Republican Thomas Massey of Kentucky joins him in co-sponsoring a bill that would force a House vote to release the files. DJT knows the left jammed in some garbage about him in the files.
Well, I haven't been overly interested in it. You know, it's a hoax that's been built up way beyond proportion. I can say this, those files were run by the worst scum on earth. They were run by Comey, they were run by Garland, they were run by Biden and all of the people that actually ran the government, including the auto pen. Those files were run for 4 years by those people. If they had anything, I assume they would have released it.
A suspect is in custody after a stabbing spree at a Michigan Walmart. Injured 11 people on Saturday. Grand Traverse County Sheriff Michael Shea says Bradford Gilley was arrested and is facing a charge of terrorism and 11 counts of attempted murder. The victims range from 29 to 84 years old and are expected to survive. Good guy with a gun stopped it all, a Marine with some other good Samaritans. A Delta Airlines pilot is under arrest after being taken into custody Saturday immediately after landing the plane. The flight from Minneapolis to San Francisco had just arrived when at least 10 law enforcement officers, including air marshals and Homeland Security agents, made their way into the cockpit. No word yet on why the pilot was arrested or what his current status is. Over 170 passengers, if you hadn't heard this yet, and crew safe after a landing gear caught fire on a jet at DIA as it was ready to take off for Miami. Thankfully, no injuries. Rockies at Cleveland today, first pitch at 4:40, and...
Welcome back to New York. Irv, you've been taking an overview. What kind of football are we seeing?
Well, it's not normal midseason NFL football, Brent. A little sloppy, but it's simply a reflection of the long layoff and a short week of preparation.
And that is the great Irv Cross from NFL Today. Just love that show. I had to play it. He's 86 years old today, 86 years young. The great Irv Cross. Broncos training camp continues. 81 in Aurora, 79 in Englewood, 80 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue. Billy, thank you for helping me on that one. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Hot and hazy here to start the week as temperatures here along the Front Range and in Denver will soar to the middle to upper 90s. Lows tonight, low to mid 60s. Little bit cooler, 80s and lower 90s with the monsoon returning. That means thunderstorms again Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and likely into Friday as well. Weather is a service of L&L Heating and Air Conditioning. For quick, trustworthy, and dependable service, call L&L Heating and Air Conditioning at 720-851-1691. Visit them online at bestdenverhvac.com. You'll be comfortable with L&L. Meteorologist Don Day in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
To Aaron Lee here in just a second. I want to talk to you first about my friend Dan Kaplis with Dan Kaplis Law. I've known Dan for decades. This guy is the real deal. Solid on the values. Pro-life, pro-family, pro-faith, pro-America. That matters because who you choose to represent you in an injury case is going to say a lot about you to everybody involved in the case. Dan has spent 40 years of his life helping people hurt in serious motor vehicle crashes. He's one of those guys with a sterling reputation. And that matters as much as winning in the courtroom. Listen to some of these statistics. Dan is believed to be the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar verdicts in Colorado crash cases. Dan is also believed to have won the largest truck crash verdict in Colorado state history. Dan Kaplis Law is so trusted, he's the official law firm partner of the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche. Dan Kaplis Law is a serious firm for serious cases. Dan accepts righteous injury cases on a percentage fee basis so that he can represent good people from all walks of life without regard to ability to pay. So if you need Dan's help, give him a call. In fact, I think you should put his phone number in your phone right now, because when that car accident happens, you're not going to want to be Googling people. You want to build your team and let's get to work. Dan Kaplis, call him right away because it's in your phone. Here we go. 303-770-5551. 303-770-5551 or hit dankaplis.law.com. That's Dan, C-A-P-L-I-S law.com. All right. Bill, do we have her on the line? Great. Now, there's just great moments in American history, world history, where, you know, forces of evil, they just mess with the wrong person. And what unleashes is just this power of good into the community that was never intended. Because in this case, she was just living a quiet life. She's with her husband. She's with her kids. She's going about raising kids, building a life. But then evil done messes up a little too much. And in this case, unleashes this mama bear that is just not going to have any of it. And not only is she going to rectify the evil that was forced upon her and her family, she's going to change it for her community, for her state, for her nation, and she's going to drive this all the way to the end. It's why we are so happy to have Erin Lee in Colorado. She's going to fix things, and it's an honor that she is a friend of the show and joins us today. Erin Lee, thank you so much for taking time to join the Jeff and Bill Show.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning, Jeff and Bill. Thanks for having me.
Well, you've got a lawsuit that's been appealed all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court now. Tell us about that.
Yes. So, as you know, our journey started back in 2021, which you hit the nail on the head. I was a pretty unsuspecting, non-confrontational, average mom, and then they came after my kid and really just wreaked havoc on our family through a secret gender transition in a secret gender and sexuality club disguised as an art club, where they convinced my barely 12-year-old daughter, and this is at the height of COVID, so very vulnerable at that point, that she had been born in the wrong body, that she was actually a transgender boy, and extensively taught her to lie to her parents about this identity and about this secret gender and sexuality club. And so 2023, we actually, just a day before our statute of limitations lapsed, we filed a federal lawsuit against the school districts, and we were so blessed that Pam Bondi actually took our case through America First Policy Institute before she became AG and spearheaded this effort. And it's been a long, hard road to get here. You know, unfortunately, we've had a lot of closed doors. We've had the case dismissed. We've had it refiled, dismissed again. We were dismissed at the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals. But we were dismissed with a favorable concurrence, and we were really left in a pretty positive position. All the cases like this have been thrown out across the country. There are dozens of secret school transition cases in red and blue states alike, and no lower court has been willing to make a decision on this. And so we've been left no option but to appeal it to the Supreme Court. And last week we filed our cert petition, and we are officially on the docket for consideration at SCOTUS.
It's a big deal. We're talking with Erin Lee. Erin's with a great organization called Protect Kids Colorado. She's the executive director, and you can follow her online at Erin for Parents, the number 4 Parents. Now, Erin, what is the law? What is the issue that needs to change? What are you alleging, and what does the court need to step in to fix?
Yeah, our attorneys have really brilliantly framed the issue down to one question. And the question they put before SCOTUS is whether or not a school district may discard the presumption that fit parents act in the best interest of their children, and then arrogate to itself the right to direct the care, custody, and control of our children. So it's, you know, a basic fundamental right that is, you know, cemented in the 14th Amendment, that parents are fit to control the custody, care, and control of their own children, and that the government does not have a right to assume them unfit and intervene and make those decisions on behalf of parents without parents' knowledge or consent. And so that's what we are trying to establish, which, of course, this would hold the Poudre School District accountable for what they did to my family and others. There are multiple families on this lawsuit that's been appealed. But it would have very far-reaching ramifications for all school districts in the country. This would set precedent that you cannot keep secrets from parents about vital situations such as gender and sexuality.
Erin, it sounds like to me that the key phrase there is assume unfit, right? So if you do have parents, and there are parents that are out there that are just plainly unfit, and the school has to work with parents and the kids, and there's some flexibility there for the school to be able to work maybe without necessarily informing parents all the time. I'm thinking like abusive situations, things like that. But what you guys are pointing out is that the school, just by nature of their own policy beliefs, their own beliefs around the issue of transgenderism, have assumed that parents like you are unfit, ergo they have a role to step in and try to educate the child without notifying you, without including you, without taking into your consideration, and they somehow know better than you do, and it's all based on an assumption. Did I get that right?
Right, and it's such a ubiquitous issue. We actually cited within our complaint to SCOTUS within our appeal, an article from Defending Education, defendinged.org, which highlights thousands of school districts that have explicit secret school transition policies that affects tens of millions of kids here in this country. And that's just the schools that put it, overtly in policy. The Poudre School District does the same. They very clearly have a policy that encourages secrecy. But there's really this mindset across the country that parents are all guilty until proven innocent. And by innocent, I mean willing to transition their own child. And I think 1312, which I maintain was a gift to the state of Colorado, they really put it all out on the table. The wording within House Bill 1312 really demonstrated how our government officials believe that an unwillingness to transition your child is equivalent to abuse, socially, chemically, surgically. If we're not willing to go along with that, they went so far as to define that as abusive in state statute. And so they're trying to deem parents all over the country unfit, and parents are losing their custody for this. In red states and blue states alike, the parents in Indiana and Montana have already lost custody of their minor children for an unwillingness to medically transition them. And I think how lucky we are that it didn't get that far with our daughter, and that we're able to be this voice for so many families and to fight back the way that we have, because we were blessed by getting her off of that conveyor belt before it got to medicalization or before we lost custody of our child.
That's Erin Lee. Erin's the executive director of Protect Kids Colorado, but even more than that, she's a mom who faced this effort within her own schools to force gender ideology upon her daughter against her own will, to cut the parents out, and to essentially bring about terrible harm upon her daughter. Now, Erin, maybe one of the responses out there would be gender is the determining factor in ideology, or in identity, not biology. And if your daughter's exploring this, don't you have a mandate as a parent to help her? And if not, wouldn't she possibly commit suicide? I've heard this time and time again down at the Colorado State Capitol, that if you try to base identity in biology when someone believes that their identity is rooted in gender ideology, that you could bring about serious harm to the point of possibly suicide. What's your response to that?
Well, it's my job as a parent to love my child with truth and to give her the necessary guardrails as she explores identity. And, all teenagers go through that, where they are, whether it's, when I was a kid, it was the goth phase. It's normal for kids to explore and to be figuring out their identity. But it's also imperative that parents are there to put guardrails around dangerous pitfalls, which I had no idea would include teachers and activists in my school district, feeding really dangerous ideology into my child's head. The suicide myth is hung over all of us parents who go through this. I've yet to meet a parent, and I've talked to thousands now who've had their children secretly transitioned at school. I've yet to meet one who was not bullied and gaslit with that suicide myth. You must transition them or else they'll kill themselves. It's the only option. You either transition or suicide. There is no in between. And there is no evidence to support that. There is no research. In fact, at the Scarametti case that was heard before the Supreme Court, the ACLU lawyer, Chase Strangio, even admitted that there is no evidence to support the suicide myth. And it seems to be the only argument they have left in terms of bullying parents into going along with this. So, gosh, this case, if taken up by the Supreme Court, or one like it, there's another one that's been filed and another one on its way. And it's possible they could even be consolidated. But this would set such important precedent that parents have the right to make that decision, not school officials.
Erin, I want to point out this history, and I might be just kind of uniquely positioned because we were running lobbying efforts on behalf of Colorado Christian University down at the state capitol for years. And we watched this agenda that was born in an effort to carve parents out of the educational process. And transgenderism is one of them. But there's other aspects of this. And Daphne Michelson-Janae, she was a state rep at the time, and she was running this bill. She's now a state senator. And the bill was schools should have unlimited counseling sessions with kids without parental notification. And we saw this bill come through, and our lobbyist at the time made us aware of this, and we're like, well, that's weird. Unlimited counseling sessions without parental notifications. You think as a parent that your kid's going to see a counselor, you might want to know about it, right? Like, if you really care about the kids, shouldn't it be a process in which their entire lives is guided by people that care about them and are in their best interest, to just go, oh, no, just the people at school are going to know about it. The parents who are with the kid from, let's say, 4 p.m. till 6, 7 a.m. the next day, oh, we're not going to include them in even notifying them that their kids are seeing counselors. We thought that was weird. So I go and sit down with Daphne Michelson-Genet, and I'm like, hey, what is the deal here? And she goes, well, right now, a kid can come into a school counselor and say, I am suicidal. I want to commit suicide. And the counselor has to go, hold on a second. I can't talk to you until I talk to your parents. I go, okay, well, that seems a little odd that, you know, a person's like, I'm about to jump off the top of the building. Hold on a second. I can't talk to you until I talk to your parents. Okay. Well, Daphne, why is it unlimited? Well, why not go, we're going to allow 1, maybe 2 conversations without the counselor, but obviously at that point, we're going to bring the parents in. She refused to budge on it. The law that passed allowed for unlimited counseling. So I feel like rational people tried to address some of the concerns the Democrats had. But I bring this up to make the point that it seems like there's an agenda being pushed here, because when rational alternatives were offered, they were clearly rejected. And so we live in a state right now where you have unlimited meetings between counselors and minors with no parental notification. And I'm still at the point of going, well, why? What you argued initially was that a kid that's about to jump off the building can't have a meeting with the counselor. We offered a solution to that, but you took it to a place that only leads me to believe that you just don't want parents involved in counseling whatsoever to have total control over the counseling with the kids. I don't know. What's your response, Aaron?
Well, that law, that's House Bill 191120, that lowered the age of healthcare consent to 12. And it just is one law in a long succession of what appears to be an attempt to totally usurp the right, responsibility, and role of parents. And, you know, this is an inalienable right. This is a God-given right. The government does not give us the right to parent our children, to know what's happening, to make decisions for them. God gives us those rights. And I think our founding fathers are rolling in their grave right now that they weren't more explicit with defining this right in our Constitution, because I don't think anyone could have ever fathomed that the government would try to take over the rightful responsibility of parents. And so, yet again, this just underscores the necessity of a case like ours reaching the Supreme Court and, you know, forcing their hand into defining that right more explicitly, so that all of these laws stop being passed, so that all of these families stop being wrecked by secrets kept at school. And we've got to put an end to this train that has taken off full speed. And that law was just the first in a long progression of many laws that have affected the rights of parents in the state of Colorado.
That's Erin Lee. Erin's the executive director of Protect Kids Colorado. She's got a lawsuit going all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court, possibly for consideration. Erin, talk to us about process. And what have you heard from your attorneys could happen as a result of this law? Obviously, it's a conservative-leaning Supreme Court that in recent times has been affirming religious freedom, affirming parental rights. So if they decide what it seems like would be in line with what you're arguing, how would that impact state law here in Colorado?
Well, our attorneys are really optimistic. You know, what's funny is the biggest hurdle that I've had to overcome is people not believing that what happened to us is true. And I get it, it's shocking. The way that our family was completely attacked is shocking, and it's hard to believe. And so I hope that this will put to bed all of the people who have been skeptical that, that this actually happened to us and that it is happening on such a wide scale. But the attorneys are really optimistic. Again, that concurrence that we got from the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals really read like this Obama-appointed judge was urging the Supreme Court to hear our case. And there are multiple cases like ours that have been filed. There's Split v. Ludlow, represented by Alliance Defending Freedom. I know January Littlejohn's case out of Florida will also be appealed to the Supreme Court. And so it's possible they'll take one of the other cases, and if one of us wins, we all win. It's also possible that they could consolidate the cases. We don't expect that we will hear their decision to hear these or not until fall when they come back for the next session, and so then we wouldn't actually go to the Supreme Court until spring of 2026. So it is a long process to get there, but this, again, would set precedent for the country, that schools cannot lie to parents about gender and sexuality. That would be very far-reaching effects.
Erin Lee, Executive Director of Protect Kids Colorado. Be sure to follow her on X at x.com/Erin for parents. Erin, the number 4, and then parents. And then the heartbreaking reality, Erin, is that if the U.S. Supreme Court does not grant cert, which is what that's called, where they allow the decision to, or the case to be heard before the U.S. Supreme Court, Colorado will just march on with the same problems?
Yeah, I mean, they will, but it's the same. It eventually will be handled. I'll tell you that. Whether it's our case this session or another case in the next one, these issues are not going to go away, and these cases are not going to stop being filed to the Supreme Court until one of them is heard. So I am really confident that one way or another, whether it's Lee versus Poudre School District or another case, this will be settled. And unfortunately, the lawsuits will have to keep flying. You know, my organization, Protect Kids, filed a lawsuit against 1312. And it's the same thing. Hopefully we win in the lower courts, but it's possible that will have to go to the Supreme Court. And there's that, 3 to 5 year interim period there where these laws stand and people are harmed in the meantime. But I don't think these lawsuits are going to stop. This issue is not going to go away. And I believe SCOTUS is going to be forced to hear it one way or another.
How can parents get involved? We're all living in this state, and it's a wild state to be living in right now because you have U.S. Supreme Court after U.S. Supreme Court case heading from Colorado all the way up, right? Going Jack Phillips, 10 years. Lori Smith, 303 Creative. Now you have this case about counselors that's been granted cert. So that's 3 U.S. Supreme Court cases just about Christians being able to practice their faith, not force it upon people, not use the force of law to bully anybody, but just to quietly practice their faith. Now you have lawsuits from Idra Haji. You have lawsuits from Christian preschools. It's lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit to protect our fundamental rights, whether it's religious freedom or parental rights. And then voters are just like, you know who we're going to continue to put in office? The same people that result in these oppressive laws that have to be sued all the way to the Supreme Court. So what do you do as a parent in Colorado? How do they get involved with Protect Kids Colorado? I mean, what do we do right now?
Well, the obvious answer, you just touched on it, is change the people who are passing these laws. When is enough going to be enough? I think majority of Coloradans don't agree with what's happening. They just don't know what's happening. They were like I was, prior to 2021 when I woke up. And so we all have to do our part first and foremost to educate our neighbors, just to have conversations in our own spheres of influence about the laws that are being passed, about these lawsuits that are being filed, about the children being transitioned, talk about Colorado Children's Hospital mutilating children's healthy bodies. We've got to wake up our neighbors if we want to change the people who are passing these laws. That is really the easiest answer, is just change it. Vote for someone else. Try something else. But there are so many great grassroots organizations, Protect Kids Colorado being one of them, Moms for Liberty, CPAN, Colorado Parent Advocacy Network, Grandparents for Kids. There's so many great ways to get involved and just do your own part. At Protect Kids, we have ballot initiatives that will be launching in September to prevent kids from chemical and surgical mutilation, to protect girls' sports, to protect kids from sex trafficking. And it's so easy to get involved. You just take a petition and get the people around you to sign it. Each one is 40 signature lines, notarize and return it. And we did that as a way for Coloradans to engage. Because so many people go, oh, our state is in such disarray. It's a lost cause. I give up. I'm going to move away, or I don't know what to do. But we can fix it. And again, with all these grassroots organizations, growing and putting in the work and giving people a way to engage, we absolutely can take our state back. We just each have to do a little bit. So I encourage people to take the Protect Kids, protectkidscolorado.org, to just take a petition and talk to the people around you. It's twofold. Then you're having conversations and you're part of the change by allowing the people of Colorado to vote on these issues. And let me tell you, these are 80-20 issues. And when they're put before the voters, they absolutely will pass, and we'll see the dominoes topple.
Aaron, I want to ask you this question. I asked the same question to Lori Smith. Lori had a case that goes all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, 303 creative. Court decides in her favor. Meanwhile, while she's going through the whole process, death threats, she has to delist her address. She's facing harassment all along the way. Okay, and I just asked, I'm going to ask you the same question I asked her. What's the legacy you hope your children, in particular, remember watching their mom go through all of this in order to try to set something right?
That's a good question. Primarily that courage is contagious. I'm proud that my kids, I bring them to events that I do, and I have people approach me and say, you encouraged me to pull my kids out of public school, or you encouraged me to take a petition and start talking to people. I hope they know that their mom was an example of leading with courage, but also total faith in God's plan for me. I deal with that too. I deal with death threats and home break-ins, and people say horrific things about me online. But none of that matters to me because I am so rooted in my faith that this is right where God wants me and what he wants me to be doing. And, I don't let things get me down. My kids don't see me get upset about people name-calling or, death threats coming in, because I just have total faith that I'm doing exactly what God has called me to do. And so I hope that that's my legacy for my kids, to just be completely faithful and to lead with courage in all things.
Well, that is definitely the reputation you have developed. And on behalf of all the people in Colorado, thank you for stepping up, continuing to fight for this, protecting parental rights and education. And this is going to have an impact. This is going to be a big deal for Colorado, for the nation. That's Erin Lee, Executive Director, Protect Kids Colorado. Follow her on X at x.com/Erin for parents. That's with the number 4 parents. And you can read about the article, about the case. There's a great article there by the Daily Signal that she is linked to. Erin, this is a big deal. Thank you for taking time to join the Jeff and Bill Show
thanks
today.
for the time.
Thanks, guys.
All right, let's talk advanced hair restoration. Everyone always asks, what makes advanced hair restoration different? Allow me to share, along with some details on, and get this, their once-a-year summer savings event. First off, Advanced Hair stands by their results, and their before and afters are second to none. With Advanced Hair, your own natural hair is guaranteed to grow. Secondly, Advanced Hair combines top-rated physicians with modern technology, creating a concierge quality experience that's hard to find elsewhere. Lastly, Advanced Hair's Advance FUE begins regrowing your own natural hair the very next day. It's quick, it's simple, and it's easy. Now, if you have a flexible schedule this summer and you've been waiting for that special summer savings opportunity, well, it's here. Advanced Hair Summer Savings Event will get you the most hair for your dollar. It's their best offer ever. For details and to schedule your free consultation, call 720-459-HAIR. One-day treatment, life-changing results, your new hair guaranteed to grow. Before and afters are at advancedhair.com. Give them a call, 720-459-HAIR or advancedhair.com. We'll continue with the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Wake up, Denver. There's no better place to start your morning than IHOP, where the pancakes are fluffy, the coffee is hot, and the smiles are endless. Wednesday, August 27th, join Jeff and Bill as they broadcast their show live from IHOP at 1595 South Colorado Boulevard in Denver. You're officially invited to be part of the excitement. Come grab your favorite breakfast and watch the Jeff and Bill Show in action from 6 to 10 a.m. Don't forget to try the special Jeff and Bill breakfast. Pancakes, any style eggs, and crispy bacon, all for just $7.10. It's a deal as good as their hot takes. All they need is you. Bring your appetite, bring your friends, and kick off your day with great food and great conversation. See you Wednesday, August 27th at IHOP.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. A lawsuit against a school district here in Colorado, which secretly transitioned tween girls, has been added to the SCOTUS consideration docket. So Aaron Lee has filed what's called cert to the U.S. Supreme Court, which the U.S. Supreme Court then thinks about, considers whether or not to take the case. It doesn't mean that they necessarily are, but it's been combined with another case. And the idea being we're going to get some clarification when it comes to schools just kind of assuming that parents aren't in the best position to care for their children. This isn't a court order or anything like that. They're just kind of stepping in going, well, because you don't agree with transitioning your child, we're going to now start to do it secretly. And I agree with Aaron Lee. That's a problem. And this should be granted cert in consideration by the U.S. Supreme Court. Bill, what did you think of the conversation?
I like the conversation. That was one that, for me, I had to pick and choose, because obviously Aaron Lee and I are on opposite sides of the transition issue. But what I have to honor and respect is the argument that she and her lawyers are making for the Supreme Court to hopefully get them to hear it, and that is that the school cannot decide without any consultation or mechanism involved that they can supplant the decision-making of the parents. That seems solid for me on many, many grounds. So during that conversation, there were times in which I disagreed with what Aaron was saying about trans and transitioning and the impact, but that's not why she was here today. She was here because of the court case, and I have to honor her legal argument, because just like the idea of the First Amendment in our country doesn't protect the stuff that I agree with, our First Amendment protects the stuff that I very, very, very much disagree with. And I will argue with anyone for the people to have that right to say the stuff that I disagree with the most. And so even though Aaron and I disagree on here, I think she's right that, yes, the school, in her case, from what we've seen, absolutely was trying to supplant her decision-making, and did it in a way that was undermining her authority, that in my mind is illegal. And they were even, the school was telling her kid to lie to mom and dad. The process and procedure the school went through, in my mind, is wrong. I think she's right on the legal argument, even though we may disagree on the transgender issue, and that's okay.
I appreciate that, and I always try to flip an argument on and flip the roles to see how I'd feel about it. So let's flip the roles.
All the time. My kids hate me.
A transgender student is attending school in a predominantly Christian environment, and the parents go, the school goes, the parents are wrong in transitioning their children. We're going to now secretly talk to that child about their gender being tied to their biology, and we're not going to include the parents because we have now assumed that the parents are wrong. Would you like that to happen if the roles were reversed? So anyways, we're up against a break. But
the other
think
way to
about
look at
that.
it is, let's talk about a religion. Let's say your kid shows up and it's a Jewish kid that is attending a private Catholic school. Would you be okay with that Catholic school changing the kid from Judaism to Catholicism? Would you sit there and say, no, we've got to take over?
Without
talking to the
parents?
Yeah, and in fact, the school coming in and saying, no, the parents are a danger because of this. We got to make sure that they follow the one true faith because we want this kid to get into heaven. We would sit there and go, wait a minute. Yeah, so again, while I disagree with Aaron, I think her legal argument is sound, and I support it 110%.
Join the conversation, 303-696-1971. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. A Christian worship pastor had his tour canceled by Canadian authorities. Trump's warning Europe will be destroyed if it doesn't address its immigration problems. Plus, Aaron Lee joins us on the latest case from Colorado to make it possibly all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. If you missed any of this, go to 710knus.com to download the podcast. 710knus.com to download the podcast. Bill and I debating it all. Classic Jeff and Bill show.
I know, classic show. Just like, well, it's a Monday. If Jeff and I are arguing over something, it's a day that ends in Y. Pretty much it.
Oh, great program. Thank you, sir. Thank you to Blake Olson and John Corbliss and Mark Crowley and everybody. We'll be back tomorrow. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
This is 710 KNUS.